Hello and welcome to another episode of Fintech Focus TV with me, Toby. This is one I have been looking forward to bringing to you for some time. At the end of last year, we put in the Financial Technologists magazine the Ultimate Fintech Workplace Award, which was won by VoxSmart. And today I bring to you their COO, Adrienne Muir. How are you?
I'm well. How are you, Toby? Thanks for having me.
To have you on the show. Listen, it's as I said, look, I had the great pleasure of being able to interview you and Oliver at the end of last year for this, and it was a video that we then passed on to our judging panel of EY and various other companies as well. Baringa were involved in the judging, DB1 Ventures, and we had a great look at some of the most innovative and brilliant companies and a stunning shortlist of businesses that really made themselves a great place to work over not just the pandemic but all stages. Yours was one that stood out, absolutely fantastic, and it was a great conversation that left me positively inspired afterwards. I left it with great energy. I can't wait to bring the same sort of story to everyone as well. So, listen, congratulations on that win, and it really was it is a great company and a great company that's doing great things to look after its employees. As we'll go into various different bits and pieces about the culture and where you go from that, but I know that's something which you've always put a great credo on, a great importance, significance into, to making it a great place to work at VoxSmart. Tell us a little bit about why that's been important to you.
Oh, I think first and foremost, when Oliver and I first kind of met, we were like, well, we want to create a culture where we want to work. So I think, it started with a conversation around the lines of, look, we've come out of sort of big financial services and institutions, and we've had great experiences. We've had not so great experiences. And so we really sat down and we were like, okay, if we're going to build a business and scale it, take it global, what will it take and what will we need to really create a great culture? And it was a really interesting conversation in the first instance, because we were like, well, we know what we don't want. So then we had to kind of flip it around and go, okay, what do we really want? And we sort of focused on things like, we really wanted to be quite proactive. We really wanted to make sure that we were we don't talk, we kind of do. Like, we really wanted to make sure that we had a management team that were really hands-on. And I think when you're in a startup initially, that just is a given, right? So I think there were maybe 8 people, 9 people when I started. So Oliver and I were kind of everything to everyone, but so was everybody else. And so that culture was really very much a hands-on type culture, which you'll get everywhere. And I think one of the things that became really important as we grew is we wanted to make sure that we were also diverse and flexible. And that was something that was important to me, actually. And Oliver, he's got young kids as well, or had young kids. I've grown over the years, but at the time we were like, okay, they do that. We were like, okay, if we're going to bring in really talented people to work for us, let's respect the fact that they are doing that. So we really wanted to make sure that we had a really flexible working environment, and really built our teams on trust. And that was really important that we actually led that ourselves. So I've always had a very flexible approach to how I work. I get my job done. I'm very clear on what we do, but that was really important. It meant that I could take my kids to school in the morning and be at work on time. And if I needed to be, we made sure that things like, school plays and if your kids are sick were really important, right? Because that's where you start to really build a environment where people start to really want to work for you and really trust you. And we also wanted to make sure that it was a place where you would learn and you'll be educated as you go. And I don't mean that in a, hey, we're going to have a great learning and development program, but you're going to be working with really incredible people. So we didn't make a very sort of like, this box is going to be over here and we're going to close the door. We made sure that we had meetings on the outset that kind of brought everybody in and made sure that everybody was learning as to what we were doing. So over the years, the culture has kind of changed a little bit, but what we've tried to do is kind of keep it very much as we wanted in the outset, very, very values-based, which is great. And I think we've all worked for organizations that have had values up on the wall and been like, and you go, what are they? And they're like, and they're looking to see what they are. But I think that what we wanted to do was make sure that we talked about them a lot. And I think, interestingly, and I think we'll talk about this probably a bit later, but one of them was resilience. And I brought that in because I felt that that was really important from a mental health perspective. And I guess it was kind of sort of definitely a buzzword, but quite controversial as a value, I guess, because we wanted our technology to be resilient. We wanted our teams to be resilient, but equally we wanted people to understand that was quite a broad kind of a word. And we wanted to make sure that people understood that there takes many things to be resilient. For example, sleep, respect. You need to feel respected in the workplace. You need to feel comfortable in the workplace for you to feel resilient. So we spend a lot of time thinking about that as well, which has come in incredibly handy, of course, during a pandemic.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting, isn't it? Because values have really been pushed to the fore, like no more, over the course of the last 10 months, year. And it's been really important to have those anchors. And the companies that I've seen have done well have really made sure that they're working on taking that sort of story and pushing it out and speaking to their employees to make sure they understand that and it means something to them. And that resilience piece is a classic classic part. And if you read sort of any book about successful teams, be it sport, military, business, or whatever, that sort of values-based, purpose-driven theme comes back to time and time again. And I think a lot of companies, you say, have it on the wall but don't necessarily embed it into the DNA of the business.
I mean, values from my perspective help you have conversations with people, because if you have kind of psychological agreement with someone saying, by the way, these are our values, and tell us what you think about those. And we do that when we interview. We sort of talk to people a bit about them. But one of our values, and a lot of people have it as well, is we are respectful, but also we take responsibility. And when somebody hasn't been respectful, you're not sort of saying, hey Toby, that wasn't, you're sort of saying, hey Toby, one of our values is about being respectful, and I'd really like to have a conversation with you about that, because that didn't feel like it was, and let's talk. So it kind of takes the air out of the kind of conflict of conversations, and you can start to have real adult conversations with people. And that really helps when it's, we've got another one, which is collaboration. And when you see teams sometimes in conflict, you go, hey guys, remember, we work collaboratively. So let's just have a bit of a step back. And I know that sounds a bit twee, but honestly, you should try it because it works. It's like some of the tools that you have when you've got young kids. You're like, all right, kids, I think we need to talk about this. I find that quite helpful. So yeah, I mean, we're not sort of going around, constantly talking about it, but it's definitely in our DNA. And that's one of the things that I really wanted when we sat down and was like, what sort of culture? I wanted that to be something that we'd built these values that, we've obviously done a asset purchase of a company. We've brought in a whole bunch of people from Madrid, incredible staff from a company that we bought, was from Fintech. And one of the first things we did was really spoke to them about who we were as a management team, as a culture, as a company, and we talked to them about our values. And they were like, oh, you sound like you're like us. And we're like, yeah, well, we would like to talk about how we're resilient, and we love to talk about how we are, we take responsibility, and we're also passionate. And of course, the Spaniards are really passionate, so they loved it. And we talked about that in the outset because we wanted them to then kind of understand what we're about. So yeah, I am really big on values, because I think it starts to really talk to you about what a company is and what they're about. But we are so much more than that. But I think values are really helpful as you're growing a business. It's super duper helpful as they get bigger. You kind of help lock yourself into and anchor yourself into who you are and what you're about.
I think that's been something that's really noticeable about you guys. And look, I've got to know VoxSmart as a business a lot more over the last year or so. And I think there is culture is a word that sort of screams off the page when I think about you guys, and that goes from the top down. And I've always loved speaking to you and Oliver, and that enthusiasm and that passion for a business that's sort of scaled and grown. And it's been an interesting story, and it's going to get even more interesting, I'd imagine, over the course of the next year or two as well, with some of the plans that you guys are getting involved in at the moment, where we see that growth. But it's difficult, as you say, with that, with acquisitions and scale. You're talking about sort of keeping a culture that's sort of very, very sacrosanct when you're 8 people in a room, and at that sort of stage, then sort of moving into something bigger and brighter. Tell us a little bit about how you would describe that culture and how you've maintained it as you've grown.
That's a really good question, and I guess that I'd like to think that everyone would answer the same, but we wouldn't. I think our culture, we're authentic. I like to think our culture is quite authentic. If we're going to say something, we're really going to do it. I like to think that's how I am as an individual. Sometimes it's much to everyone's detriment. Oh, here she comes, But you kind of say what we mean, and we get on with it. And I think that's really important and we've kept doing that by just being ourselves. I think it's really important that if I'm having a really tough time, I am going to be telling someone that. There's no need for me being the COO saying, oh, by the way, I've got it going all really well right now. When we have our regular town halls and we're talking about how we're feeling as individuals or as a team, like we make sure that we're talking about how it is, and we're very clear about how we communicate, because it's the only way for us to be. And I would say we focus a lot more on trying not to be overcomplicated. I know that sounds ridiculous in some respects because nobody wants to be complicated, but sometimes you can get so far into what you do and how you go about doing things that you can actually, people are out on the outside are going, sorry, what? And particularly when we're in an environment where we're educating financial services, because we are in a process of looking at communication surveillance, right? And that's kind of new. You know, we're working with, you know, taking WhatsApp and making sure it's recorded and it's then put onto a surveillance system. And a lot of people are like, what? Why? I just thought you banned that and you don't need to use it when you're in a working environment. We're like, oh no, you can. You know, if you look at what the regulator says. And so we've been trying to be authentic. We're trying to sort of not overcomplicate things. We're trying to make sure that we're communicating internally and externally. You know, we like to think we're very much the authority in what we do. You know, we're doing some incredible stuff with communication surveillance.
Absolutely.
And I think, you know, gone are the days where you're just looking at that trade. And I come from a, you know, markets infrastructure background of exchanges and trading. But I think that when you start looking at, you know, it's just so much more than that trade surveillance bubble. It's all the stuff that's happening around that. And we've seen that with LIBOR. We saw that with, you know, companies getting whacked with humongous fines. And we're kind of like, look, we're here. And that's the thing I love as well about working for a, you know, a company like ours is we're here to solve a problem, and we're here to make sure that it's a problem that needs to be solved. We're not sort of like, oh, by the way, we think you've got a problem. We know it's there. And the technology is incredible. The clients we've got are great to work with. We're in a really good position right now where we can really offer our products really quick because we're a SaaS company. Like it's getting better and better as we go, because trust me, and that first year when you're trying to build your product and educate the market on what you do start to wonder about, if I said this a million times, you know, how many times can I say this? So I think you've got to make sure, you know, your team can't get fatigued. We've got exciting people that bring the products to life, which is great. We've got such great customer, I mean, now I'm going to get all like, but we've got such great technical account managers and salespeople. The clients are really lucky because everyone's answering the phone and is just, you know, ready and willing to help. And that was actually really important to us as well, that we weren't outsourcing that and saying, oh, this is going to be outsourced to someone to, hey, welcome to VoxSmart, hey, how may I help you? We wanted everyone to make sure that they had the, you know, the first port of call was a incredibly smart VoxSmart support team. And that's a global kind of role that we've got. So, I mean, as we scale, it's going to be a little harder, and I understand that as we get bigger. But I think if anything, it shows us that we really want to make sure that everyone has that in their sort of, again, in their DNA, that they know the product, they know what they're talking about, and they communicate that to everybody as well.
I think there's some really important things that you said there, because you know, there's a big correlation between the customer service that clearly has happened in your business and the feedback that's allowed it to grow to that sort of level that comes from having a happy team. And if you've got a happy team, you generally have an enhanced customer service that goes alongside that, with customers who are delighted because you've got a happy, engaged business who knows what they're talking about and they're confident in what they do. The other thing I sort of took out of what you just said there was about, you know, the significance of great technology solving a real industry problem. And these are some of the sort of, you know, the homing lights that seduce, that like a moth to the light, the best tech talent in the industry. And you've got some outstanding people, as you say. Tell me what makes it a great place to work. And I think I probably sort of said a little bit about it there as well. But why the best technologists in an industry where people are very, very competitive for the best tech talent, about how you are winning and engaging and retaining the best tech talent at the moment within your organization?
Yeah, and again, you're right. It's a tricky and it's a competitive market, and we're really lucky with the people that we're bringing on board. I think, interestingly, one of the things I've noticed during this pandemic, which is really helping, weirdly, but in a great way, is not that need to be literally in the office as well. So we've actually recently onboarded some incredible talent from Scotland, and we've got them working for us right now because we've got really good at remote working. So that for me is a bit of a win and a bit of a tick from a culture perspective, because gone are the days when you have to be coming into Old Street to work for us anymore, which is fantastic. And that's kind of broadening the capability of some of the people that are coming on, because we're like, actually, I know that you're based in York, but I'd love to bring you on board because this works for us. And so that's been really interesting. But I think the other thing too is it's quite cutting edge technology. And I think that we're doing something which is quite interesting. And I think people really enjoy that. And then when you sort of start to meet the team and you start to see how that team works and how they just naturally are very, very clever and very respectful of each other. It's an incredible environment to work. You know, we've gone from just having sort of a couple of developers to a really large global development team. So the people that are based out in Madrid are super clever. They are dealing with some of the most, I wouldn't even start to pretend that I knew half the technology that they are getting into. But in saying that, the way that they work, you know, we're looking, you know, they're doing sprint planning and there's scrums in the morning, but the technology itself is interesting and people are collaborative. And I think that is what a lot of people are looking for. And also, you don't necessarily have to be pigeoned anymore as well. There's a lot of learning. Like I've noticed that I've been invited today to like a Vox lunch, which is the tech team sort of talking to each other and talking to others, or the product team will do something where they will talk about what they're about to do in terms of a release. So there's lots of knowledge sharing. And I think that's quite important when you're bringing in young grads, absolutely. But equally, when you're bringing on people to kind of look at quite complicated technology, they want to work for a company that's trying to be innovative, and that's what we are. So we don't sort of say that's kind of we're Mr. and Mrs. Innovative, so come and work for us. We've got to work with people. We've got to work to sell our company too and make sure that we get the right people on board. And, you know, we are not perfect, right? We have got good and bad things happening like any company, by the way. So we try and be sort of upfront about that as well. You know, it's a hard sell in this environment at the moment in tech, but yeah, so far we're doing quite well. And I think that's, you know, credit to our tech team. They are a very, very smart team.
I come back to, you know, mastery, autonomy and purpose a lot when I'm talking about this for technologists in particular, which is stolen from Dan Pink in his book Drive, which talks about the sort of real motivators behind people doing a good job in a business. And if you look at there, and you know, I think mastery comes in many different forms, from training people and having programs through to the ability for you to work with great colleagues and you know, kick the tires of various problems. And when you're talking there about those Vox lunches, I think it's those things that can become so important for people to you know, recognize that they're learning from really good people around them. And as soon as that slips, you know, you can you move backwards in a big way. The autonomy there, particularly around, you know, sort of getting good at remote working, means that people can be trusted to get on with you know, with their job really well. And the purpose of what you're saying is solving problems that are genuine problems in the industry. And I think fintech's great lure has always been you're solving genuinely interesting problems out there. And I think you guys have done a really good job at packaging that and allowing it to be, you know, something there which is really stand out for them.
Yeah, for sure.
I think if you throw something into the mix, you know, we're sat here now in January 2021. This is the you know, the 1800th lockdown of this whole process, and you know, whilst there is you know, light on the horizon, we're still sort of there, and it's been really difficult for people across, you know, multiple industries. You mentioned mental health earlier on. We know there's been pressures on people, and I think you guys have done really well at sort of keeping that connectivity and keeping that sort of spirit alive within the organisation as well. So, tell us about the steps that you guys have done to ensure it stays a great place to work throughout a pandemic, with people from Scotland to York to Madrid to everywhere in between.
I mean, everyone's been, I mean, it wasn't lost on us in the first instance in March when it happened last year that Madrid went down pretty quick. And
yeah, exactly.
we were really, I think we shut our offices actually in London probably a week before they were asked to be closed. We just like, you know what, let's all get home and let's just sort of batten down the hatches, but also just check our connectivity and check, you know, like in a business continuity perspective, let's just see how we go. And that sort of meant that we were sort of united because, of course, all the Madrid staff were at home at that point. So was our Singapore office. And we just wanted to make sure everyone was safe because, you know, the messages that were coming out were not great, especially in Spain. So that was really important. But then we sort of stepped back and we're like, okay, how are we going to make sure we're communicating well? This is important because I knew how hard it was going to be. I also knew that my kids' schools were about to be closed. You know, I knew that it was going to be carnage for everybody really, but we had to kind of keep our, you know, keep our spirits up. So we looked at things like, you know, we had regular town halls, right? And like everybody, we're using Zoom and Teams, but the town hall is important because it kind of got everybody on board on a Monday, and we would talk about what's been going on. And we're a company that, dare I say, in a pandemic, we were raising money and going through a Series B. So kind of keeping everyone up to speed on what was happening, talking about, you know, some of the larger client implementations that we're doing, like keeping everyone focused on the fact that, yes, there was this crazy pandemic, and still is, right? But we've got so many great things happening in our company. And I think sometimes you can just fall into this, like, it's just all feeling a bit rubbish, really. But we wanted to sort of say, look, remember this project that we've got on, and actually we've just done this release, and actually we've just onboarded this person. Hey, welcome on board. And I think onboarding staff, I think we onboarded this last year like 35 people. It was insane.
Yeah, it's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah, insane. And it's hard because I haven't met half of them. And I've found that really hard, actually, because I am that, like, hi, nice to meet you kind of person, which is probably really annoying for them. But not being able to see each other and kind of get to know them, for them, must be ridiculously hard. So making sure that onboarding, it was, very much focused on, calls and saying hi and welcoming people. But equally, one of the things that we did as well is we implemented a couple of resilience days, resilience again being one of our values. We had the first one sort of around about June, where we said, we want everyone to take a resilience day. We want you to just do what you ever need to do, like, I don't know, sleep, read a book, I don't know, whatever it is, but we sort of added that to everyone's sort of, like must-haves, and we thought that was really important. And I was like, look, there's no pressure to take it, but everyone did, and it was really sweet because everyone sort of came back saying, actually, what I did was I went for a big walk. I took my kids for a walk, or we went somewhere in June. Everyone was still kind of traveling around. We went in hideous lockdown, and then we did another one around about November, and that was really about getting out and seeing nature. And we were like, look, we're all in houses.
I think I've seen some of the pictures of that as well.
I think I was out for a walk on the park. Yeah, we did. Oh, we did. We put some terrible photos on the internet, but of the management team. We didn't embarrass everybody, but we were like, we got everyone out and about, and I think that was important. And the other thing we did is, it's a well-being allowance. Now that well-being allowance is, just enough to kind of, it might pay for a yoga mat or a online subscription to something every month. It might pay, we've been quite flexible. It might pay for a Deliveroo lunch 3 days, a month, or whatever it might be, but something just to help with your health and well-being. And that's been lovely as well, to be able to sort of say, to kind of give back. People are using it for the fit apps, or we've had one of those crazy, I think they're kind of acupuncture mats. Have you seen those that you lie on and like they torture?
Better nails.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that.
Okay, do you really want that? I'll pay you 50. Yeah, so that's been amazing. Really keeping in touch, allowing people also, I mean, working from home allowance, where people are like initially sitting at their kitchen table, fine, right? Sort of 3 weeks into it, everyone's backs are sore, and you're like, okay, what do you need? And so we kind of looked at, office chairs and, making sure they had the right screens, because people were just working off a laptop. Now I'm in this office, I've got a decent, I'm in a spare bedroom, right? But I've got like a decent screen, I've got a decent chair. I think it's really important if you're going to be giving sort of 7 hours a day to a company in your own home, what can we do to help support? So just little things like that were really important. And I, we didn't sort of mandate it. We just said, let us know what you need. We got one guy who needed one of those standing desks.
Yeah.
Because he'd really hurt his back. And so we made sure that he had sort of that as well. So important. I mean, people have gone into the office in London on and off, which has been like a treat. It's been amazing.
Yeah, I know.
It's just so
it's certainly
nice.
going to feel like that again now.
Yeah, you're like, oh, I'm having Pret a Manger coffee. So yeah, that was been nice as well. So, lots of communication, lots of, just being kind is just, I mean, it's such a small thing, right? But
yeah,
it's not lost on me that people are turning up every day to work for VoxSmart, and I'm really grateful for that, because it's an incredible company. But it's not lost on me that people have lost people to COVID, and we've got many staff members who've lost family, and it's really tough and really hard. But on the bright side, we've also had lots of staff that have also had babies, and we all know what it's like to have a new baby, and you want to kind of show them off, but you're in a pandemic. So we're trying to we just communicate as much as we can and celebrate the good things and try and keep it positive as we can at the moment.
That positivity is so important, isn't it? Because it is a fine blend, as you say. There's a real tightrope that one has to walk in these sort of circumstances, because you trivialize at your peril, and people are going through different things at different stages, or in all sorts of stages. But I think you used a really interesting word there that's sort of come to the fore a lot over the last year, and certain companies I think have absolutely embraced that, is be kind. And I think kindness is a super skill at this sort of stage, just to sort of individualize. And that's what I really took out of our conversation, just before Christmas, that you guys were very, very good at individualizing, every single member of your team and treating them, with their own specific set of, of issues, and keeping that sort of over communication, I think was a word that that's been used at various different stages, but such an important word, to over communicate and look at everyone. I see it all the time in our business. Every single person's got a slightly different viewpoint or a different set of challenges, and that ability to sort of just try and be there for them is hard yards, but I think yards that you guys have absolutely taken in your stride, and it's great with it. Within looking at that and saying, look, one of I guess one of the benefits is people are less likely to move at times like this, and it can be quite good for retention in some respects, that you haven't got people who are getting to those itches because they're worried about what lies beyond. Retaining talent is as important as attracting good talent, and particularly in technology, you generally tend to see lifespans that aren't that long in a company for technologists as they sort of get itches and look to do more things. This year, the prediction is as things start to thaw in the second half of the year and people gain confidence, that there will be pressures on companies to retain their best talent. My bet is that you will withstand that sort of storm a lot better than others, because you've traditionally been very good at keeping that talent within your business and engaging them for reasons we've just spoken about. Tell us about some of the things you're doing to retain your best talent, and how you'll continue to do that as the company grows and sort of fear thaws in people being able to move.
Yeah, I mean, it's been tricky, right? I think the first and foremost is even if people do choose to leave, and we've all left companies, I want people to leave as good leavers, and where I can. Yeah. Unfortunately, sometimes that doesn't work and it doesn't happen, and that's always sad, but that's kind of life. And we're pretty realistic about that. But I think when you've got some really good talent, I think it's just creating an environment where they're feeling really empowered, and they're not feeling, we're dealing with adults here, and as long as we can be clear about the direction of travel, and we can talk about, people are clear on our values, but also our mission and our vision, and also our business strategy, everyone's on the same page and they all know where the direction of travel is, well, that's great. And if that means that the technology team are really clear on what they are delivering and developing, that's fantastic. So, that's important from my perspective. We sort of touched on that, I think, when we spoke last time, is our sort of strategy over the last year has been quite clear, has been very clear, but it was really important for us to make sure that every single person knew how they fit into that. And we talk about, we have sort of pillars around people and process and what's happening around there, but we kind of break that down and make sure that even if you're a junior person in finance, how you're waking up every morning and contributing to the growth of VoxSmart. If you're a QA, what you're doing to contribute. So I think that's important. So you're not sort of like feeling like you're on the peripheral and going, oh, I think that's something that Oliver and Steve are doing, that I've got nothing to do with that. No, we all should know what's happening. And I think, we've all been there. I mean, I've been a very junior member of staff and been like, I've got no idea what they're doing. And when someone actually can turn, and this is what Oliver Blower is incredible at. He is such a great storyteller. He will tell you the story.
He's a great storyteller.
Yeah, he's a great storyteller. And I think that's really helped with retaining staff, because he's like, guys, yes, it's going to be tough, and yes, we're going to have to work hard, and it hasn't been great. However, this is the direction of travel we're heading in, and bear with us. And I know that it's been complicated because we haven't had some stuff, and that's the reality of being a Series A to Series B. You are not flushed with cash. You're trying to do stuff in a way. I joke about this. I think it's a New Zealand saying, or maybe even a Kiwi saying, but that we're running our business on the smell of an oily rag. Sometimes we've been doing that.
I love that.
Because we have had to be really clear about where we've put our money, right? And where we put our people, and where we've hired and where we haven't been able to hire. And that's been the tricky part. I've found it's been really hard, but equally it's challenged us to think quite differently. I mean, we're working for a company where you're like, hey, we need to hire someone. They'll go, yeah, here you go. We've had kind of, as you're growing as a company, you've got to go, actually, is it the best place and best use of money at the moment for that person? And you've got to really think about it. And having really clear processes in place to make sure that that is right is so important, that it doesn't look like, oh, the management team just made a call to hire somebody out in Madrid and nobody knows why. People will see how that links to the implementation of a global client, or they'll understand that works because actually we're under pressure because our QA team are under pressure because of the product. So I would hope that if I sort of said, here are the 5 people we've hired recently, can anyone tell me why? Hopefully they'll be able to tell me the story back. When you're retaining people, you want people to be feeling like they're part of this, and that they're not sort of lost in the fog of what we're trying to do as a company, that they are learning as they go, that they can see your management team and your business management groups, or anyone actually, kind of rolling up their sleeves and getting involved. And look, as we've kind of almost a year into this pandemic, it's becoming harder, I won't lie, because you're only seeing people like this, aren't you? And you're not sort of seeing...
Well, when you said 35 people, you haven't been able to build that sort of true, authentic relationship with it. It's a struggle, and I think everything you've just said is on the surface of it, very, very common sense, very very straightforward, unrevolutionary things, but it's so difficult to make common practice. And particularly when you're doing that and you haven't got those audiences. And I think what you guys have absolutely mastered. And I think it is an absolute test case for a brilliant workplace in what you're saying there, is that ability to weave everyone into that story, to be very clear about what that vision looks like and where people are going and their parts into it, which is textbook in terms of great workplace organization, absolute textbook. And it is very, very easy to say, but to execute it, and to execute it with the aplomb that you guys have had through growth, through a workplace that's probably not been together. More of the team haven't been together more than they have. I think is one of the most extraordinary stories that and something which I hope in 5 years' time, when you're looking back at this journey, that you recognise just how special what you guys have achieved in doing that. And it's a great. I've always said that doing this show is like a great MBA for me, because you're hearing from people who are doing great things. This to me is the absolute genius of what you guys have done, and that. That inclusion communication aspect is
it's so important.
Very, very difficult and very, very important.
Say on that, Toby, is you've got to make sure you're communicating not just the good stuff, and but you've got to make sure you're communicating the stuff that's not so great either.
Tough messages, absolutely.
And I think that sometimes again, as a growing company, there's been some pretty tough decisions we've had to make along the way, and they've been really quite heart-wrenching in some respects. We've had to do an organizational change or something along those lines, or someone's left because they've gone overseas. There's been some, but you've got to communicate it, and it's not easy sometimes when you're feeling like, oh, this is not the greatest piece of news, but it's got to get out there anyway. And I'd much rather someone hears it in a town hall, or from us, or from the management team, than from somebody else, and it becomes word of mouth
gossip.
That just doesn't help your culture, and we've all been part of that. So we really try as hard as we can to answer questions up front. Sometimes we might be too transparent, dare I say it. I don't think you can be, really. As long as you're being, as I say, really upfront and clear about what you're doing, then it just keeps everyone going, okay, well, I know what they're saying, so let's just crack on.
You spoke about something earlier on as well. I want to loop back in on, because you sort of intimated that you are I know that you're becoming a teacher as well as a COO at the moment, as the working from home challenge of the pandemic sort of comes above us. And as I'm saying that, I'm sort of trying to drown out the noise that's coming from the kitchen of a 7-year-old fighting her mother at the moment around at our house. So I understand the challenges of this. Talking about how you guys have dealt with working parents as well during this pandemic, it's been really interesting. Tell us about some of the things you've done there.
Oh, I think I wrote about this, and I must go back and look at the blog I wrote, because I remember when I first started doing homeschooling, it wasn't as good. I think we've talked about how even homeschooling has evolved. My kids doing a lot more Zoom calls than they were in the first instance. But I think in the first instance, I started doing like sprint planning with the kids almost. Like I had a scrum in the morning, like, what do we need to do? What do you and I had sticky notes, and I had like
you're coming useful at some stage.
And I was like, hey, I've learned something when I've been working in a tech team. And that was quite good, because they would sort of move things along as I'd done them. And I was just like, oh my God, I could stab myself at this point. What am I doing? But it is what it is. And it's so important that you can't do both. Parents can't be homeschooling and working. We can pretend. I could tell you right now that I've just done homeschooling in the morning. I'm not going to say I was on a call or lie to anybody, because it's just not the truth. And I think what we've got is a situation where we're like saying to people, okay, we've had kids that were sent home because they're quarantined because, one of the teachers had COVID, and then all of a sudden you've got one kid at home when they were at school. Now we've got children at home. We've just got to be really flexible and recognize that people are going to do their best. And that's all I'm saying at the moment. I am doing my best. I mean, you're lucky I'm even kind of dressed, like it's just tough. It's really tough because we're not teachers. Teachers are incredible. If I chose to teach, I would have been like that. But it's just making sure that your kids are feeling comfortable as well. We know that. So what we're doing at VoxSmart, very much so, is making sure that if people need that flexibility, they've pretty much got it. I'm just saying communicate. Let your manager know what you need. I had a conversation with one of the staff members yesterday, and she was saying, I think I'll do mornings and my husband will do afternoons. I'm like, great. Then you just move your meetings and you do what you can do, because I don't expect you to do it all. I think you've got to be realistic. Otherwise, you're going to get people lying to you. And I just think that's crazy. I mean, that doesn't foster a great culture anyway. So very much like, I'm not saying you need to make up those 8 hours in the weekend. Christ, I mean, no, that's just not going to happen. So I think flexibility is key. We've got to respect people and respect the environments that people are in at the moment. And also, as a mother who is homeschooling, I'm just taking my hat off to anyone who's doing it. I mean, we've had some really, I don't know if you've had it, we've had all sorts of kids come in. I had my son behind me once when I was on a call, and it was summer, he didn't have much on, let's just say. We've had, I've been on a call with some investors, and it's been a massive fight with my 9-year-old and sort of 6-year-old outside, like cat fight.
falling through the door.
Yeah, and I'm like, sorry. I think Oliver's not muted once and sort of screamed at his kids and then realized he had it muted, and they were like, I mean, it's been funny, right? And I think we will look back on this.
When it is funny, I think people are so much more open to that, those sort of interruptions, and I think my youngest has sort of become a celebrity on some of the Zoom calls with, and she plays up to it now as well.
I bet she but I think we've got to realise too that the kids, it's hard mentally on the kids, and we've got to be there for them too. So not only are we there for our organisation, we've got to support our employees, who then have to give just so much more back to their families that they probably haven't had to in the past. And we're not, particularly in the London at the moment, you're not getting out as much as you probably would be, and you're not sort of doing as much as you probably have been in the weekend. So it's just making sure that we just check in on people and make sure that they're okay. And if you're not, and I say it quite often, I'm like, having a bad day, everyone, really struggling, why not, and it probably becomes a bit boring, really, because we're all in the same boat. But I think I was saying this to someone the other day, I mean, you're not all in the same boat, you're in the same storm. Everyone's got their own thing happening, right? And I think this pandemic is a massive storm, but I'm homeschooling a couple of kids and I'm able to work, but somebody else might not be able to do that, or someone's just lost a parent. So I think we just need to be really respectful of that and just give people their space.
Yeah, which I think you guys have done very, very well. I think the other thing that you guys have always been sort of very ahead of the curve on is DE&I, and ensuring sort of diversity and inclusion is very much on the agenda for VoxSmart. Tell us a bit about the measures and steps you've taken there.
I mean, I was having this conversation the other day with somebody. I don't think we've necessarily got we've got a lot of work to do. When I say a lot of work to do, we've got a lot of work to do, perhaps in like what our D&I policy might look like, and actually a lot of policies as we grow our business. But what we've done along the way is we've kind of done it kind of almost naturally in some respects. And I was on a panel, it wasn't last year, was it? It was the year before now. But I was talking a little bit about this. And
all blurs now.
Yeah, panels. Remember that? You sit next to people. I've been quite lucky. It's not lost on me at all that it's such a privilege to be in my position, as working for an incredible company, but as a COO. And there have been some situations where I've been able to, and I'm very, as I think we probably know, I'm quite sort of pro women in the workplace, but also have had the opportunity to sort of have, actually, we're going to hire that woman and put her in there. And we actually have got some incredible women working at VoxSmart. We've got like a whole team of QA. We've got product managers. We've got, I love this, right? We've got some incredible developers as well. So I think in terms of looking at, diversity from a, equity perspective around, equality, we're pretty good. I would say when it comes to, we talked a lot about, gender. Yes, we're really looking at that. Age, not really a problem from our perspective. We've got people from all over the show in terms of age brackets working for us. I think also when it comes to, I mean, people joked the other day and said you're just hiring Australians and New Zealanders, and we're not. I mean, in terms of ethnicity, it's high on our agenda, definitely. But I think also it can't be a ticking the box exercise. So sometimes I feel like I've been holding back on that policy because I want it to become quite natural, that people are feeling that they can talk about whether there is any form of unconscious bias. Like, what filter am I looking through when I'm looking at this? Knowing that difference between, we talked about this last time, banter and bullying, be really careful. When I've worked in environments, of course, in financial services where I've been like, maybe I'm a bit desensitized sometimes to some of what has been banter and inappropriate, but I'm a little bit more aware of that now, and we certainly make sure we don't, really put up with it, if I'm honest.
There's a really interesting article that was put out by this, and it's an English guy who coached the Fijian team to their Olympic gold medal in the sevens rugby, Ben Ryan, and he put out an article just about that whole no banter culture, and seeing basically banter as a sort of evolution of bullying in the sort of macho culture of international rugby. And I thought it was a really interesting, thought-provoking piece a couple of years ago. And you do think of it, desensitizing exactly. I've had over 20 years in the recruitment industry, where particularly in the sort of early 2000s, it was pretty brutal at various different stages what people had to go through. And you do think about that and have to sort of really put into what can be brushed off as a joke and how it actually impacts people, and to be able to allow them to flourish and feel comfortable and sort of thrive in an organization. And it's something which I think is very much on the radar for people.
Yeah, you've got to be confident enough to shut it down, but equally recognize when it is kind of banter. And but someone's banter could be okay for someone, but actually deemed bullying to the other. So
exactly right.
I think that comes down to self-awareness, and we do talk about that quite a lot as well, and really recognizing, come on, mate, that's not kind of appropriate, and would you do that, elsewhere? So that kind of helps. We've got quite an open culture that we can have that conversation with people. I think speaking out, again, we're really fostering a pretty open culture. If somebody did feel a bit uncomfortable, I'd hope that they would talk to somebody, which is really super important. I think exploring sort of the angles of respect as well that are needed as when you've got diverse forms of thought and people that are required to work with, I think it's really important that we have those conversations, and we kind of do. It's important. So I want to focus a bit more on this properly in 2021. But when I look at sort of the way that we are as a organization, it's not the worst when it comes to diversity. I'm pretty proud of it, to be honest.
No, absolutely, as well you should. So look, we've been talking for way over the time that I imagine we would, because it's just so fascinating in terms of where this goes, and I'm quite happy to do this because I just think it's so many good things that you can take out of this. But I want to ask two last things.
Okay.
One of which is one of my favourite questions, which I ask people when I'm taking a job, because I do think people don't think necessarily about this answer. There is, for tech talent in particular, sales talent as well, a real premium at the moment on the best talent joining a business, and you've got to think about why people should join you over the competition. So when there are 2-3 other companies who are offering the same or even better than your proposition in terms of financially or whatever it is like that, why would someone come and join VoxSmart? What are some of the reasons which make it compelling to join the business right now?
That's a great question again. There's so many reasons, if I'm honest, and of course I'm going to say that. But look, we are a growing business, when we are in the process of just completing our Series B, and we're about to scale, and that is so exciting. And we're talking, the potential to acquire other companies and have more sort of growth. We're looking at our product. We're bringing and onboarding some really exciting clients. Our pipeline is busting. The people that we work with in sales and clients are fantastic. The tech is incredible. I think it's important that we also have, we've kind of touched on rugby before, and of course as a Kiwi I can help, but we very much have, I think it was might have even been Graham Henry, who had this kind of basically a no dickheads rule, dare I say it? Sorry about that. We can cut that out. But you know, we want people to work with us who want to work with us, and I don't want drama. I can't be bothered with politics. Come in, have fun, work hard, and enjoy it. And that's the culture that I wanted, because I've worked in places that wasn't really like that. We've got a direction of travel. We are scaling. It's a growing business. The technology is great. There's room to improve, room to move, room to innovate, and that's kind of cool. So you're not just sort of sitting there getting bored. I think this is actually the exciting time to join VoxSmart. We have been growing for the last 5 years. We've been bringing in talent. We've been onboarding incredible clients. We've been really making space for ourselves. We're really well known now. I think we were just quoted in the news just today. That would have been not heard of at all sort of a while ago. But so people are coming to us now because we are the authority in what we do. We think about what we do 100% of the time. And I think that's the important part when you speak to banks or you talk to a broking firm and they're like, oh, I don't know why I would need this. We're like, well, we know why. Here, we do this for you. And that's a kind of powerful point as well. So from a tech perspective, from sales, we onboard some incredible sort of QA and support staff, even right down to the sort of operational roles. Everyone's got a space and a place at VoxSmart, and it's really important that people know that. And when we've got quite a robust, I would say, recruitment plan for 2021, and we'd love to have people come and join us. It's a pretty great place to be.
I've been sat here with a sort of big smile on my face as you've been running through that, because I knew it would be a great answer, and it is. Look, I think it's utterly compelling, and I think that question is so. There's people who sort of stutter through that, but when you've got this sort of avalanche of things which make it a great place to work, it becomes really exciting for people to be a part of it. So thanks for sharing that. Look, the last thing I want to do, so we close off this great story, is to talk to you about things which people can take away. So there'll be people here looking and wanting and having that ambition to make themselves a great workplace. If you could put, as you say, look, you've got a unique perspective, having taken on some 35 odd people, who over the pandemic remotely, which I think, and I love that phrase at the stage. We got really good at remote working. If you can give a couple of key tips to people there who are looking to make a great place to work, when we're looking at potentially the next 3-6 months, however long it is in these sort of circumstances, and whatever comes after that, but just a place there where you can say that these are some of the key ingredients to making a magical place to work. What would you advise to people listening today?
Oh, I would say, good question again. Look, in an environment like this right now, it's almost like when you're on an airplane. Dare I say it's going down, right? You are looking to the air hostess to see what her face is doing. Your organization right now, they're looking to their leadership team to know that everything's okay. They want to know that if they are feeling stressed out because they've got a homeschool, or all of a sudden they need to take some time off because somebody's actually unwell, that you're a team that you can go to. They can go to you and ask, and it's clear that it's okay. And I think it's important that you're available. You can't have people that can't access you. So we try really hard to make sure that if anyone needs to get hold of us, and that's, our CTO, our CRO, even people within our business management team, please reach out to us. And I think that's so important. That helps people know that they can. I don't want this sort of hierarchical, I don't know what's going on if I'm in trouble, or I don't know what's happening in a company. So I would say be really clear and really available. I think that's important, particularly at the moment. I would also say, to sort of on the back of that, is that a management team, you've got to also look after yourself and make sure as a team that you're checking in as well, because there's only so much that we can give to others, and we've got to make sure that we're the same. So, I was really great at taking my resilience day, and equally, I'm very good at saying, I just need some space. I need to turn off my Zoom today. I'm not feeling great. I'm just going to listen into this call today, let me get back to you. So I would say that's about being really authentic and really honest in your communication. You can only ask so much from your teams. And I know that jobs are important, right? I get that. But I keep sort of saying, it's not, I love the fact that people have come to work at VoxSmart, so I want to make sure in turn that we're really respecting that. So make sure that you're respectful of your staff. They are your biggest commodity, and they are the ones that make your company great. It's simple as that. So I'd say those are probably pretty important. Just look after each other. not a nudge.
Be kind. Comes back to being kind again, doesn't it?
It is be kind. It's yeah, and maybe I'm a bit sort of naive in saying that, but that goes a long way. And look, again, I'm not perfect. I can be a grump. I get that. But I like.
Look, we said we started today, didn't we? Saying that today is officially, as we're filming this,
Blue Monday. Yeah.
Blue Monday, the latest media hype to allow us to feel depressed about a day of it. But I tell you what, anyone who's been watching that and listening to that, I defy to be able to feel blue, because it is a as I said, look, before Christmas I came out of it bouncing. Again, hearing it again for me is just something I find massively inspiring, massively motivating. I love the story that you guys are on, and I've got no doubt that to hear it going from strength to strength to strength. I'm so pleased that you won the Ultimate Fintech Workplace Awards and put yourself in that position. And it is I've got just absolute concrete belief in everything that's going to be going through for you over the next couple of years as well. So Adrienne, thank you so much for coming on the show again, and for giving us that honesty, and congratulations with everything. Long may it continue. And listen, great talking to you. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Toby.
Thank you all for watching. We'll see you soon on another episode of Fintech Focus TV. Thanks a lot.